And, captions, there we go. Okay, I think we are finally good to go here. So welcome everybody. A little small crowd today. I don't know where everybody is, but anyway, I'm actually thinking that maybe since we changed our meeting time, don't see as many people as we used to, so I don't know if that's a problem. But anyway, want to thank you all for being here. So I don't know if she's going to make it today, but I am on a little mini vacation in Sedona, which is absolutely beautiful. And I also happen to be at the Sedona Public Library because my hotel has very poor internet.
Ouch.
Yeah. And so fortunately, this library is 5 minutes from my hotel. So I decided to come over here, and the place is just beautiful. So I was hoping that the director, I had invited Judy Poe, who is the director of the library, to join us, and she may still do that. But Mala, do you want to just talk briefly about how they ended up with a gigabyte here at the library?
Well, it's been a long while going in that direction. I actually worked more closely with Judy's predecessor, the former director of Sedona Public Library, and we had been working since 17 maybe, or earlier, on laying fiber in Coconino County. And this was one of the early projects that we did. And again, what we tried to do to make availability and affordability, and we're still working on that for all of our libraries and schools, is to network them into consortiums so that they apply as a consortium, which is helpful for both the service provider as well as the libraries and schools. Mainly the libraries, because, like Sedona Public Library, the staff is not too, they don't have a huge, big staff, especially a huge, big IT team to work on their E-rate or any other IT projects. In some cases, like I was mentioning about Greenlee County before we started, they share the IT person with the city. So they don't have people to help them apply for E-rate or apply for broadband. And they do it when the IT person has spare time. So obviously, in Sedona Public Library, it was important, imperative that they link up with their school consortium and make a network so that they can use the school IT person's skills and apply together. So that's been what we've been doing for a few years, not just at Sedona, but also at the other libraries. And Sedona Public Library now has a gigabit service after we laid the fiber down in that area. Also, they were one of those who got their application approved this year in the very first wave of applications, which means they did it right, and there were no questions asked about their application. So that's how Sedona got its gigabit connectivity. And that's again another project that was partly subsidized by the state subsidy for E-rate, which we got in 2017.
Cool. So this is a great example of the great work in this state, and of course the great work that Mala has been doing for many, many years now.
And Mylan. I don't want to leave Mylan out of this because he was instrumental too in getting us, getting the school and library consortiums.
Yeah. So let's move on. And I wanted to do a couple of things. First of all, and we have, I think, a couple of new people who have joined us this morning. One of which is, which we were chatting with a little bit earlier, is Craig Settles. And Craig has been involved with broadband issues around the country, or maybe around the world for many, many years. I know Mark and I and others have had some communication with him over the years. Craig, do you want to, I know you were chatting a little earlier, but do you want to just introduce yourself real quickly?
Sure. Thank
Tell
you.
people a little bit about who you are.
So I guess if I go back, in '95, I wrote the first book on the internet and the web. And that is kind of how I went from being just a marketing and PR guy to a digital maven of some sort. And so I did that for a number of years. And then in 2005 is when I wrote about community broadband when Philadelphia was trying to build their wireless internet. And it didn't do as well as we had hoped. But there was a lot of lessons to be learned, and that's what I said. I did the one book there. I did, and where I met a number of these folks was in the Obama administration, and when we did the broadband stimulus. And so there was a lot of work that was involved with that. And then 8 years ago, I had a stroke, and telehealth is actually one of the reasons why I'm still here. And the neurologist who set up the stroke center, she had her home set up in such a way that she was able to take over to the ER team, and were able to diagnose and to start treatments within 30 minutes of my time arriving at the hospital.
Somebody's,
Oh,
thank you. Oh, we have somebody who has, okay, thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
sure. So because I was writing yet another book, I was struggling with how do you describe, the internet and broadband and the gigabit and all of that. And so as a result of my time at the hospital and my understanding of telehealth, then that's how I started then reading, talking about the internet as this beast that would allow people to do things they could not do before. And why it is so important is because, for example, in the situation with the stroke, if I've been in a rural area or a city with bad communications and internet and so forth, I may not be here. And so the experience has then redirected my efforts as I try to get people to understand the value of telehealth and the broadband element. And the pandemic helped that along, because all of a sudden people could understand now why telehealth was important. And so now I'm trying to drive the discussion to using telehealth to drive broadband adoption. And I figured out a couple weeks ago that where we are is that people now have a better understanding of the internet and telehealth, but what people really need is just an understanding of how to take action. Right, we have lots of theories and all of this kind of stuff, but right now, especially with all this money that's here, the question is, how do you use that, at the community level? And that's where I'm at now, is trying to get this discussion moving forward with examples and that kind of thing. But that's where we are. So that's the short version of my life.
So Craig, unfortunately, she's not here today, but Janet Major actually did a great presentation last week on what's happening. She's been with the Arizona Telemedicine Program for 20
Oh,
years,
excellent.
25 years or something. And
Mhm.
she's just awesome. So it's too bad she couldn't be here today. And then maybe a little later, Mala can talk to you some more about the demonstration project that they're doing with libraries and telemedicine.
Ah, yes, right. Mm-hmm.
So let's move on. Couple of quick things. I don't think Kirk Bush is on the call today. I'm not seeing him. But some of you may know that the ATIC AZBSN website had been compromised, and Kirk really stepped up and had some of his people work on it, fix it, and to be looking at some ways to make it more functional. And so that's going to be an ongoing process, but really appreciate Kirk stepping up, and at least now we can use the website, and I think have removed all the viruses and so forth that we had. So anyway, and Mark, I don't know if you want to say anything more about that.
Sure. I believe Kirk is on actually, but sure, his guy Phil, I authorized $500 from ATIC's budget, which is the limit for the executive committee without a vote of the board. And Phil agreed to do a bunch of cleanup, and he has, but then Kirk has further himself tackled some Weebly and continue to clean up and simplify the navigation. Steve, one thing you and I need to do is probably sit in a collaborative session with Phil and Kirk and tag content that really just doesn't even belong there anymore.
Yep.
So that will help simplify things further, but we are back in business. So
Yep.
Thank you, Kirk and Phil.
I don't think Kirk's online, is he?
I saw him.
Well, I'm not seeing him. Anyway, so let's move on. Just wanted to first of all thank Kirk for stepping up and helping to get that taken care of. So we also have
Kirk was online for a little bit, but now he's
Yeah,
ending.
he chatted me, said he had to bounce. He was there for briefly, but he didn't hear us thanking him, so I'll tell him.
Okay. And so I'm seeing one new person who's joined us today, and that's David Jimenez. And David and I go back, how many years, David? 20 years or something?
Oh, at least, right?
At
Back in the
least.
days.
Yeah. So David, you want to introduce yourself real quickly, who you are and what you're doing?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Thanks for letting me join this call, Steve. I'll to follow up on Craig's story there, but I'll try to give you some background as to what I've been doing the last 30 years in telecom. I started out with major carriers. Was kind of like on the forefront of the fiber implementations here in Arizona. Have a lot of background on the fiber connections between business to business, either it be dark fiber, WAN, and now you'll hear that new term called SDN WAN, which is disarticulating how packets are sent across the network on an incoming and outgoing. And then what I think is really important, what all you guys are probably focused in on, is cybersecurity and how you are able to protect your networks from all the threats that are out there. Given that AI is on the forefront of a lot of things that will be in the ransomware area, where they can replicate algorithms faster than a human being, almost 100 times old. I think that is the kind of like the quintessential protection that most companies are looking for. So I'm on the business side. And also on the E-rate side with government education, led our office with E-rate submissions this year. We did have some success. I think what a lot of remote areas are looking for right now is some type of internet connectivity. Since fiber is not really something that's highly available in some remote areas, we've got some success with our partner relationships with Starlink satellite systems, which can go all the way up to a 3 meg or gigabit service, starting at 100 megs and up to a 3 gig, depending on how many radios you put up on. So if you guys are interested in, further information in that implementation, I'd be more than happy to share that with you. But I think it does offer and lends itself to some more connectivity options that otherwise wouldn't have been there a year or so ago. So with that, that's just kind of what I've been up to for the last year now, and finishing up the E-rate season and looking forward to the next one.
David, did you mention the company you're working with now?
Yes, I'm working with GSW Telecom. We're a local company here in Tucson with the Arizona presence. We do everything that's in telecom and also IT. We're specializing in the network infrastructure of the IT component to the outside world, right? So that's basically protecting your internet connection for all things that are threats going into your network environment. So, that's what our main our mainstay is right now and our focus.
So David's CEO gave me my first internet connection. It was a wireless internet connection. Many years, I don't know, 20 years, 15 years ago or something like that. It was my first email and my first internet connection.
Had a really good run with Simply Bits. They're a local WISP here in Tucson, which is offering the point-to-point wireless connections. But that's all changing. It's going into the point-to-point wireless connectivity is going into a care graph network, which is allowing you to go up to a gig between short hops, right? So look at that as being a great alternative to bypassing the traditional last mile wire networks and fiber networks.
Okay, thank you, David. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Glad we ran into each other. So I'm going to move on, and there's a few other things on the agenda, but I did want to get to kind of our focus for today and introduce Mikhail. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Mikhail?
Hi, yeah, Mikhail.
Mikhail Sundust, who is, and I apologize that last week he joined us for a little bit, but I really want to focus on the work that they're doing. I think it's a good example of how a internet provider can be involved in digital inclusion. So with that, Mikhail, I'm going to turn it over to you. Did you want to share? I can stop sharing and let you take the reins.
Yeah, sure. That'll be good. Give me just a second to open the window. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Steve. Let's see. So this one, I appreciate you inviting me to just present a little bit about what we're doing at Digital Connect before the group here. You guys are all doing amazing things, and I'm just sort of in awe that all the different small networks and digital inclusion work that's going on throughout the state is really impressive. So we're just trying to do our part in the Gila River Indian community to help people get connected and acquire those crucial digital skills for getting connected and staying connected and using their internet connection to the biggest benefit. So to that end, we've got a few different projects that we're working on, but Steve had asked me if I would like to share about the digital inclusion study, which is really just sort of getting started. We haven't even truly started it yet, but we kicked off with an RFQ, which I think sometimes stands for different things, but in this case, it stands for Request for Qualifications. And so if you know anybody who's interested in conducting or helping us to conduct a digital inclusion study, send them this link. I can put this in the chat for you all. So this is our digital inclusion study, and really the focus is to conduct some asset mapping on the Gila River Indian community, and to learn more about what goals people have, like what are sort of their desires and their ambitions And then also what are some of the gaps that exist on our tribal lands. So that hopefully those three components, the asset mapping, the I forget what we called it. Sorry, I've got it right here. Asset mapping, needs inventory, and the gap analysis will help us, put that all together to write up a digital equity plan for the tribe. And one important thing to know is that this is really a tribally led thing. It's not digital. It's not digital connects necessarily, even though we're sort of like quarterbacking the project. We're like sort of coordinating it, but it's really tribal for the entire Gila River Indian community. So that includes our library, our 6 schools, the education department, which works with surrounding high schools, because we have high school students throughout the surrounding areas. It includes our healthcare facility and all of our elder care services. So really, we want to try to do a really thorough, complete study of Gila River. Again, just reviewing what are the assets that exist, the needs that are there, and the desires that people have, so that we can come up with a good plan for everybody. So that's the digital inclusion study. We're sort of going to be modeling it on the NDIA's work. They came out with this state digital equity plan toolkit, and there are several other digital equity plans that exist that I'm just sort of like trying to get familiar with right now. I know North Carolina has one. I'm pretty sure Seattle and Denver have one. So there are really good examples out there, but it's just like, an overwhelming flood of information. So, if you know anybody, again, who's interested in this kind of work, or has experience with it, or if you know of examples that we can turn to that will help guide us, I'm open to it. I'd really appreciate that. So that's pretty much it for the digital equity, or sorry, the digital inclusion study. The purpose of the whole thing is to really come up with a good plan, and I'm pretty excited about all of the community engagement that's going to take place, because we plan to get out into the community, and we couldn't do this. I know in 2020 they had a plan to do something similar, and it just didn't work out because that was the first year of the pandemic, and there were no community gatherings, there was no in-person stuff. And so this year, from this summer till next summer, it's about a 1-year projected timeline. I'm really looking forward to going out to the community service centers and hosting roundtables and public forums with residents of the Gila River Indian community. It should be a good time. So yeah, that's the study. Do y'all have any questions about that?
Yeah, can you also just give a little more background about Digital Connect, how you relate to your sort of parent organization and some of the work that you've already been doing besides the study?
Yes. So for sure, I'm going to navigate to another website just to sort of help provide some context. So technically, and you'll notice in the logo here, well, it's real tiny. I don't know if I can make this any bigger. Sorry. It's our logo is Digital Connect. We're an initiative of Gila River Telecommunications. So our parent company, which is really our primary employer for me and my staff, is the Gila River Telecommunications Incorporated, and they've been around for 35 years. Actually, they're celebrating their 35th birthday in about 2 months now. They provide phone and internet service to the reservation, Gila River, and they have 4 subsidiary companies. I'm scrolling down because I know our logos are here somewhere. There they are. There's our old logo. So we have Native Technology Solutions on the top left here, which does sort of like more of the construction type of work. They do install fiber and run throughout buildings. They install connections. Down on the bottom left is Alluvion, which is another ISP. Technically, it's sort of its own sort of thing, but it operates outside of the reservation boundaries, so it doesn't receive the same federal support as GRTI, but it also doesn't have the same regulatory restrictions as GRTI, so that's a little beyond. And GRBC on the top right here is our Gila River Broadcasting Corporation, which is the first tribally owned and operated low power TV station. And they broadcast a signal throughout the reservation. I think you can tune in on channel 29.1 if you're on the res. And if you're not, and you're a community member, they have like a streaming service of some sort. It's not very Netflix. I think it's basically just whatever's over the airwaves. But it's pretty cool that, you know, the tribe is offering that to their residents. So we are in the midst of all of our sister companies, and sorry, I don't know why now this website's being funky. And they started Digital Connect. The GRTI board started Digital Connect back in 2018. Really, it's just an idea, you know, saying, you know, we've got a fiber to the home project. You know what? Let me see real quick. I know I've got fiber to the home somewhere here. Check this out. So this is Gila River's fiber to the home project. You know, they got the maps. I don't know if I want to click that one. Let's try it. But as they were conducting all their fiber to the home build out, so here you can see this is on their website, so publicly available stuff. They realized, you know, it's not enough to just provide access and a connection. We also have to educate our community members about what is fiber, how do we use it to our benefit, you know, what are some different uses that we can find in Gila River for high-speed broadband and participate in the broader modern economy. So that's really what those kind of questions are, what kickstarted the idea of, oh, let's start a new initiative. Let's call it Digital Connect, and it'll be all about providing devices and education and other resources to tribal members related to broadband. So some of the projects we've been working on lately, if I go over to our little events page here, you know, we've got listed on here, we've got about 2 events per month. And then we do a few others that we don't really list publicly because they're more like one-on-one with different constituent groups in the community. But we do, you know, between 4 and 6 events per month, as well as one-on-one trainings with our residents of the reservation. You don't have to be enrolled, but if you live on the reservation, you know, everybody's welcome. We're just here to help people with their devices, so it's not like we're not trying to be like exclusive or anything. So our BYOD is what we call it now. We're kind of like rethinking that that name, but it's called Bring Your Own Device because we found that people oftentimes have their own questions about their own devices. Like, you know, a lot of elders would be like, well, the district gave me this tablet and I don't know how to use it, or my grandson gave me his laptop, but I'm not really sure what to do with it. So we just said, yeah, bring whatever you got, whatever your questions are, we'll help you get connected and build your skills. So that's a little bit about Digital Connect, Bring Your Own Device program. Some of the other projects we have in the works, which aren't listed on the website, but you know, I'm currently working with a local community college to start an apprenticeship program with our sister company, NTS. So as I pointed out, we've got the NTS, the construction company here. They can always use more manpower, especially, you know, you all probably are familiar with sort of the shortage or impending shortage of workers in broadband. And so we want to help bolster that and also give tribal members an opportunity at a really great career. So we're kicking off an apprenticeship program, hopefully in the next month or 2. I mean, we're kind of just, we need some help with the marketing side of things, and we're in the process of hiring a marketing manager. So there's a few little holdups there, but yeah, we're going to kick off an apprenticeship program pretty soon, which is exciting. What else? there's, we've got another project where we're trying to, well, the plan is to install free public access Wi-Fi in all of the service centers. So on those maps there, each of these districts, we've got districts 1 on the east and 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You can see them laid out on the map. Each of those 7 districts has its own service center. They have them actually on the map there, those little white circle icons with the blue sort of institution image or icon. Those are the service centers, but currently they don't have public Wi-Fi. They have limited public Wi-Fi, and GRTI during the pandemic set up Wi-Fi not hotspots, but like access points in the parking lot. So if somebody needed to use Wi-Fi, they could drive to the service center and access Wi-Fi there. But it's not great service, and it's limited to the parking lot, so you can't get it inside the building. So our goal, our plan is to use Treasury Capital Projects fund dollars to install that equipment and make it available. So yeah, we've got a handful of projects going on at Digital Connect, and it's a lot of fun. I think that's it, Steve.
Okay. So Mikhail, you want to stop sharing for a couple minutes? And I think some people may have some comments or thoughts. Anybody want to share anything? Questions?
Steve, I just put in a link in the chat, essentialskills.org, and there are really a lot of trainings there that are free, user-friendly, and many companies have used those in the pandemic, but it's still useful. It started during the pandemic, and they say over 400 workforce development organizations and nonprofits have used those trainings. And they're all open access, they're free, and anyone can use them. They're basic skills, not anything in a particular, not for a particular software or something, but just basic Word, Excel, those kind of things. How do I create an email address, simple things like that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I just clicked on I just opened the link on my browser. Thank you.
Okay.
This is great.
So when I talked with Mikhail last week, I guess it was, or maybe a couple of weeks ago, a couple of things that came up. If I remember correctly, you are not doing anything with ACP at this point, but you were thinking about that. Was that you that we had that conversation?
Yeah, that's correct. So there's a couple of reasons why we're not doing ACP yet, but we can tell just sort of like through conversations with some of the tribe's financial department and our political leaders, that we have to start gearing up for that soon. We just don't know when. So hopefully, I mean, we'll get there, and fortunately, there's a lot of people who have gone before us and have a lot of resources, so we can learn from you all. But it's on the horizon for us.
Well, there are a number of people who are on this call who know ACP quite well. We've had many discussions. You're actually going to hear about some of that in just a couple minutes. And so, as I told you, I think there's a number of people. If you're interested, be sure and put your contact information in the chat, and I think people will be glad to contact you and be of help to you. Certainly, our library folks and so forth. Yeah,
Elena and Aaron have been very helpful, so I appreciate both of you guys staying connected. And then I see Elena gave a shout out to Aaron gave a shout out to our digital navigator. So just to mention that we are also recipients of the NDIA's National Digital Navigator Corps. And what that means is NDIA funded us to hire somebody for 2.5 years as a digital navigator, and his name is Tyler Smith. And so when I mentioned earlier the one-on-one support, he's the guy that does that for us, and he's really good. So it's cool to see him building relationships with folks in our community and helping them with that one-on-one tech support. It's really beneficial to them, but also helps us sort of build our awareness. So
we've been hearing good things about Tyler, by the way.
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions or comments before we move on? I'm glad you made it, Colin. I'm glad that we hadn't seen you for quite a while, so it's good to see you joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Thanks, everybody.
You bet. So let's move on real quickly. Let me get back to my agenda here. So while we're waiting, Elena, you want to kind of bring people up to date on what's happening with the FCC chairwoman tomorrow, I believe.
Yeah, I didn't know if we were going to get to it, so I put the invitation in the chat for
Yeah.
anybody who's interested. Excuse me, I'm getting sick. Perfect. Yeah, so Jessica Rosenwortel, who is the FCC chairwoman, is going to be in Phoenix tomorrow morning for a press conference with Mayor Kate Gallego to talk about the efforts within the city of Phoenix to close the digital divide, talk about digital inclusion, talk about ACP. And as part of that, the FCC outreach coordinator, Lyle Yoshida, who has been on this call a number of times, is also going to be in town. He's bringing a staff member. They are going to be doing a 1-hour workshop, kind of a train the trainer for anybody interested in how to help your constituents sign up for ACP. That's going to be from around 10. That's going to be from around 10:30 to 11:30, and the press conference is the first half hour at about 10. So I think Steve put most of that information in the agenda, but I put the actual invite in the chat because they would like to know. They have space for about 60, and I think they have 50 right now. So if you're interested, there's still time to register, and the email address is in that invitation, as well as the phone number for the person at the city to contact to attend.
That's great. They have that many people already, huh?
Yeah, it's really great. So some of the folks are city staffers who are in various departments. They will be sort of the point person for folks who use those services. For example, the housing department, youth and family services, other departments within the city. There's going to be a point person who can help with ACP. The reason for the big push, for those of you that aren't aware, and Mikhail, I put this as a note to you because you had talked about it being on the horizon. The problem with ACP is that it's slated to run out of money in mid-2024. So the concern is that by the end of this year, at least the way we're looking at it, is that unless we know that the ACP will be extended, and we're working on getting it extended, by the end of this year, it is not going to be fair if we continue to sign people up to only have their bills go up in 3 or 4 months when the benefit goes away. So the goal obviously is to make this, to make the ACP such a popular benefit, which it is, almost too big to die, too big to fail, that the powers that be will decide to keep it in place. But we don't know that that's going to happen. We know that there's debt ceiling conversations. We know that there's lots of stuff happening at the federal level that could, in fact, do away with the ACP benefits. So we don't know if that means that ISPs will start looking at other ways, because what will happen is ISPs are going to lose a lot of, a lot of customers very quickly. And so there may be some other opportunities that come along, but we just don't know. And so we want to get people, at least if we can get them a year's worth of internet connection, that's what we'd like to do. So we're doing this big push in Phoenix. Common Sense was hired as a subcontractor for the city to continue with the work that we did with our pilot program back in August through November. So we're helping them with these efforts.
Okay.
That's
Thank
it.
you. Any questions for Elena? So while we're talking about ACP, Grant, do you want to give us an update on what's happening with your grant?
I really don't have anything, Steve.
Okay.
Hopefully we can do that soon.
Okay, and probably the same thing is true, but Lupe, I saw you're online also.
Nothing right now. No major updates. We're just kind of waiting for the NOA.
Okay. All righty, so let's move on a little bit. Let me see what I've missed, anything. So Alicia, I think you're online. Can you give us any update yet on what the plans are regarding the digital inclusion planning? Alicia, you still there? Guess not. Okay, and Cindy, I don't think she's online. I don't know if she's back from vacation yet. And Aaron, do you have any new updates on what's happening with ACP and the Medicaid initiative?
Very briefly, the newsletter went out to library staff today with the information about the webinar that Alan is so kindly putting on for us for explaining some of the access and kids care benefit resources that are available. This is geared towards frontline library staff who might be asked questions, and so that they have an arsenal of resources at their fingertips. So this is advertised through the library, the state library's event calendar. The link is in the chat now. But of course, anyone is welcome to come and check it out just for informational purposes. This will be on the 30th of May at 1 o'clock, and it's all online, of course. And then that is the only update that I have as far as that's concerned. Still, as far as the print materials from the FCC going directly to the libraries, we're still in that little bit of a holding pattern. And I imagine since Lyle's in town, his team is probably not working on it as we speak. So maybe maybe after he's done with us here, we can pick that back up again. But those are my updates around those two. Okay,
thank you. Any questions for Aaron? So while we're still on the topic of ACP, any of you guys who have been involved with this stuff, that the FCC has announced a new landing page that supposedly make it easier for people to sign up for ACP? Anybody have any comments or thoughts about that?
I actually wanted to share with you something we learned on Shelby today. I think, Erin, you were on the call as well. That Benton Institute has an ACP performance tool, which they have created. And I'll put the link in the chat just as soon as I'm done talking. They based it on several factors. They've got a map that you can, that's a layered map, and you can search by various key terms. And the map is based on like people's annual income, population, age, school-going age, school-going children, whether they have only cellular data or other data available, internet services, etc. And they come up with a prediction on how many households are supposed to be signed up. And they then allow you to do a comparison by zip code. When you put your zip code in, it tells you, gives you a prediction on whether you're up to what you should be, or you're below what their prediction is, or above. And they look at factors like, is there a library close by, and is the library impacting their signing up for ACP in a good sort of way, like library promoting it and using it, or are there other factors that influence the performance? So I think that's a great tool for us to use to compare and see where we need to put our resources to promote ACP. Unfortunately, again, because ACP is likely to run out, this tool, if we are using it, we have to use it as soon as we possibly can. There are constant updates on it. There's a blog post that they're creating for the performance tool as well. So let me put this link in the chat.
I
and-
actually already dropped it in there, Mala. I had
Thank
it already queued up.
Thank you.
Oh, and just a little shout out too, if you're not on their email list, there's a subscribe button right at the top of the page for this tool as well. This was actually one of the things that they highlighted in the email, and it's just a great collection of articles and information, and it comes out daily, and it's just a great way to start your morning. So a little button. We actually met a couple of the folks from the Benton Institute at Net Inclusion this year too, which was kind of cool.
Okay. So Mala, while you're talking, you might as well just start with your update. But I did want to mention that Elena put into the chat the invitation for the presentation tomorrow. So just a couple of quick things. We didn't really, unless I'm mistaken, Elena, that we really didn't even know exactly what the details of this was until like Thursday or Friday last week. So I did not get to send this out, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm on a semi-vacation. So, but that invitation is in the chat. But I want to remind you that if you want to, that's a Word document. If you want to download that document, you need to do that before we end the meeting, because in the chat, you can't, when I send out the chat afterwards, you can't download the document from there. So just a reminder that if you want that invitation, that you should get that from the chat now.
If you don't get it for some reason, you can just reach out to me. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
And Steve, that applies to the Yuma area RFP. I went and looked. It's not online. So it's in the chat, as Alan Pruitt's contact info will be something you can repeat in your messaging, but there is an open RFP for a substantial broadband assessment project down in the Yuma area.
So I generally try to capture any documents that are put into the chat, and then when I send out the follow-up of the meeting, that I try to make those available for download. But since this particular event is happening tomorrow, if you want that invitation, you need to grab it from the chat today.
And I think we need to RSVP to Gretchen as well, to say that we are attending the training, especially. If you're going to just be there for the press conference, that's okay. But if you want to attend the training, then I think we need to reach out to Gretchen and let her know.
Thanks, Mala. Definitely.
Okay. So Mala, do you have anything else that you need to report on?
Yes, certainly. There's been lots happening in this in the E-rate and broadband front. I mentioned last time that we got 17 million approved in the very first wave of E-rate, and yesterday we got another 18 million approved in the second wave of E-rate. Sorry, Thursday we got another 18 million approved in the second wave. We applied for a total of 86 million. That was the discounted amount that we applied for. And already we are close to 35 million in what has been approved. There's a lot of changes that are happening in the tribal E-rate area as well. And there was an NPRM that came out with April 24th as the comment deadline, and May 23rd is the reply comment deadline. So far, what we are seeing is that they are asking for eligibility. The comments received are on making tribal college libraries also eligible for E-rate, simplifying the E-rate process for the tribal libraries, and I hope that applies to all libraries and schools as well. But the tribal libraries are particularly small libraries, and this applies to any smaller rural library. They're also talking about easing the cost allocation requirements for other non-instructional facilities. Like, for example, if we have a building that hosts the server and not offer public services, that building is not eligible for E-rate. But they're asking us to, and cost allocating those out is very, very tedious, but they are asking that be eased, and that that is not, that is to be considered. They're also asking about having a tribal representation at the USAC Board of Directors. So all good suggestions. Let's see if if there are any more reply comments to it. Also on the Shelby call today, they talked about the USF contributions. The USF contributions, I think a lot of us have already heard about how it was considered illegal, some time ago, and both the Sixth Court and Sixth Circuit and the Fifth Circuit courts had hearings on it. So far, at least, it has not been declared as illegal. So whatever contributions are being collected is legal, but there's also a support for the reformation of how the ECF funding is collected. Right now, it's being collected only on the landlines, and there is a lot of talk about how we can reform it to collect it from the cell services and other broadband services, as well as from tech companies that use broadband, tech companies using broadband, not telecommunication companies. And there is another fundamental proposal to end the way the current contributions are going and instead have a direct appropriation from Congress. So let's see if any of those reforms take place. Of course, the contributions are used not just for E-rate, it is used for the Lifeline program, it's used for the rural health care support, and also for the Connect America Fund. So the universal services funds are used for in a number of ways. And currently, the telecommunication service providers are having to contribute 30% of their collection as contribution to the USF. It's kind of like a 30% tax that they have to pay to this. One other thing that we spoke about at Shelby during this week, we had a meeting with FCC on pole attachments. And while pole attachments does not seem a very sexy issue, it is, at least for those of us who are working in this area and have to deal with it every day of our lives. Shelby supports streamlining and expediting the access to the poles, which sometimes means right-of-way access as well. Shelby is also supporting, determining the fee for use of the poles, because again, that is not standardized, because again, it depends on who owns the poles, and there are no rules or guidelines about it. Shelby also supports reviewing the broadband projects that are going to be impacted by this, that is the fiber layout projects and those kind of things that are going to be impacted by this. One of the things that I brought up was the fact that our ADOT actually says that we can lay underground fiber when they are repairing roads or building new roads. This was passed a few years ago. I think ATIC knows that we played a role in trying to make this happen. So that is innovative. It hasn't happened in other states, but definitely here in Arizona, that we allow that any disturbance to that area, to the laying of roads or repairing roads, it means that we already have permits and that we can go ahead and lay fiber in those areas. So without having to seek new permits or right-of-way applications. And the last thing I want to say is that there looks like there is some movement in FCC's new commissioner nomination. President Biden has considered nominating Ana Gomez. Ana Gomez is the deputy director of NTIA. Currently, she's the deputy director there. And he was talking, President Biden has nominated in place of the controversial Gigi Sohn, whose nomination didn't go through eventually, but this might not happen immediately. It's certainly likely to happen in June, likely to come up for hearing in June. So any questions?
Okay,
Did you say that Ana Gomez is Deputy Director of NTIA or NDIA?
NTIA,
Okay,
telecommunication, National Telecommunication Information Administration.
okay.
okay, thanks, Mala.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, go ahead. So,
No, back to you, Steve.
moving on, because it's getting kind of late. So Philip Sang, you're on, and I know you've got at least a couple of things to report on regarding the Office of Digital Teaching and Learning, a couple of initiatives that are happening, and maybe other things. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, so the two big ones right now, we'll begin with the capacity assessment. So we're sending this out, hoping we can get information back by the end of June from LEAs. The goal of this is to, get into a deeper dive and gather information from schools and see, how the structure of their IT department is, what policies and procedures they have, and then also provide them a maturity score for their disaster recovery, and also give them resources they can use as they plan and develop their IT department. We've heard a lot from just information sharing that, I hear about we have to have a DR, but we don't really know how to do a DR. So Karina did a really nice job of creating this to also ask the question, give them a score, but then also provide them resources. So let me link. So this is the whole information of the capacity assessment. And then here are also the questions you may see, or our LEAs would see in the capacity assessment. The only thing you won't see in the second link is the actual resources that are provided after the submission for the schools. Any questions about the capacity assessment? Okay. The second one is, so we've had interactive learning technologies, had a few teachers kind of build this into a club, hoping to create curriculum or kind of a method to develop esports, robotics, or integrating Minecraft technology, Minecraft education technology, either in their classroom or in the club. The mentors decided it's probably better as a club as we focus on academics moving forward. So Peoria and Tucson Unified, they're going to be our mentors. The information meetings are going to be Thursday, May 11th and Thursday, May 18th from 3 to 4 o'clock for K-12 to see if they're interested, gather information, and then hopefully sign up. So there's information on that. Any questions about the interactive technology? And those are my updates for this week.
Hey, any questions for Philip? Okay, moving on, and we're just about out of time for this meeting today, but just a couple of quick things. Do we know anybody in the state who attended the National Collaborative for Digital Equity that hosted a national summit on state planning for digital equity and economic inclusion back in April? Not hearing that. Well, the reason I'm asking that is that one of the topics that they focused on, and I'm going to be following up with them afterwards, because the proceedings of that conference are now available online, and I'll be sending out the link to those proceedings. But one of the areas that they talked about was, which we had discussed previously some time ago, was CRA funding, or Community Reinvestment Act funding. Excuse me. And there is a lot of interest in funding digital inclusion projects through that CRA funding. And so I wanted to see if anybody here in Arizona had participated in that conference. I don't know if that's the case. So again, I'll be sending the link out, and I think it would behoove us to look at what they did in terms of talking about state planning and also the opportunity for CRA funding. So I just wanted to mention that. And then one last thing is that I had a very, very brief preliminary conversation with a foundation here in Tucson that I've had some connections with over the years, who may be interested in providing some possible funding for some digital inclusion initiatives. This foundation is very committed to education. They've given a lot of money to Pima College, the University of Arizona, and others. And so I'm going to be pursuing them. And I talked with Aaron just a little while ago about they want me to send them a brief summary of what digital inclusion is all about, and then we'll pursue possible funding for them. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. So that's all I have for today. Anybody have anything else that they want to talk about or share or questions? Going once? Going twice? Well, then I believe we might be done for today. If anybody wants to stay on and chat for a little bit, we'll hang on here for a couple of minutes. I will mention, of course, a lot of folks are already gone, but it'll probably be a little late getting this week's summary out. As I mentioned, I'm on a semi-vacation. I'll be back in Tucson tomorrow evening and fully back to work on Wednesday. So anyway, that's the deal. Any other announcements or anything before we end for today?
Just one more shout out. I think you had it in your list. The other thing that's happening tomorrow is the conversation around transportation and healthcare. And so Mala and I are also going there, and so is Janet. And so we'll be well represented in the work that they've been doing. After the press conference and training in the morning, then we'll head over there too. So
yeah,
just
Aaron, yeah, thanks for reminding us about that. And I'm glad you guys will be there. When I talked to Todd the other day, he said there was about 40, 45, 50 people who have signed up for that conference. But I think this is only the beginning of the discussion, both for them and for opportunities for us to collaborate with them. So anything else? Anybody else have anything else that they want to